Okay, and we're back again. Seth Moore coming back at you. We're going to continue with what it means to be black. And this is going to tie in to, I guess we might as well call it a series because it'll be linked to the other previous podcasts on the ether spiritual beings that we were actually talking about, so forth. So, we're going to continue. And again, I want you to, I can only say this, that hopefully you won't take offense, although I know scriptures talks about there will be offenses. So, I'm just passionate about what I do. And if you don't have a passion for what you do, then why do it? And I just want us to be better. And I'm grouping myself in that. You understand what I'm saying? I can't, I'm not saying it because I'm apart from you. I'm a part of you. I'm in this too, you know? None of us are free unless all of us are free. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what that's about. Okay, so as I just read, I was just talking about the musicians and all, and it says, in order to correct the image that has been presented about black people, it would be necessary to return to the original source material to obtain the primary source data whenever possible. Black people need to return to their roots because it is important to explore the smallest aspect of their customs in order to have a foundation to stand on and to participate as equals in the world. We have to return to our roots. What are our roots? Our roots are spiritual, bruh. Our roots are spiritual. The original human civilization and existence began on the African continent. I don't know how many times I got to say that. And of course, wow. And this fact will be proven through the use of pictures and words, as this is an important point that needs to be stressed in order to correct the distorted portrayal of black people. And I can tell you unequivocally that this is so true. The deformation of the African people. Okay, so let us read on. Let us read on. Do black people realize what is being done to them? Sometimes I don't think we do. This is now being gradually realized, although not in its entirety. Material will be presented to show that there has been a calculated, organized, sophisticated, continuous, determined attempt to wipe out the image of black people. Did you hear what I just said? Material will be presented to show that there has been, and I've been telling y'all this, there has been a calculated, while we walking around, got our mind on everything that's not important except for unifying and getting ourselves together as a people, spiritually, we got our minds on all this other stuff. And while that's being done, The powers that be, calculated, organized, sophisticated, continuous, determined attempt to wipe out the image of black people. And some of y'all might be like, well, I got white friends and they really nice. And they really nice. But guess what? It ain't no white friend of yours want to trade places with you. Believe that. Although each of these words is very important, it is not understood in this way because blacks will interpret most of it to be incidental, unintentional, and occasional when in fact it is universal. Wow, wow, wow. And that's how because we'll take events that happen around us as normalized. We won't look at it as being strategically plotted or planned. We'll be like, oh, that's just part of life, you know. For example, the underlying section of this 1910 through 11 article from the Encyclopedia Britannica states that mentally, the Negro is inferior to the white. Keep in mind that these are actually scholars talking about the images related to black people. Now, for a lot of us, most of us know better than that, but a lot of us don't. A lot of us don't. A lot of us walk around thinking that we're less than. And I'm just going to read some of this to you. And I've read some already before. But for those who are more astute, you know better than that. But what about the ones that are not? Okay, and it reads here, mentally the Negro is inferior to the white. The remark of F. Mineta, made after a long study of the Negro in America, may be taken as generally true of the whole race. The Negro children were sharp, intelligent, and full of vivacity. Okay? But on approaching the adult period, a gradual change set in. The intellect seemed to become clouded, animation giving place to a sort of lethargic, briskness yielding to indolence. We must necessarily suppose that the development of the Negro and white proceeds along different lines, while with the latter, the brain grows with the expansion of the brain pan in the former. The growth of the brain is, on the contrary, arrested by the premature closing of the cranial structures and lateral pressure of the frontal bone. This explanation is reasonable and even probable as a contributing cause, but evidence is lacking on the subject, and the arrest or even deterioration in mental development is no doubt very largely due to the fact that after puberty, sexual matters take the first place in the Negro's life and thoughts. At the same time, his environment has not been such as would tend to produce him the restless energy which has led to the progress of the white race, and the easy conditions of tropical life and the fertility of the soil have reduced the struggle for existence to a minimum. But though the mental inferiority of the Negro to the white or yellow races is a fact, it has often been exaggerated. The Negro is largely the creature of his environment, and it is not fair to judge of his mental capacity by tests taken directly from the environment of the white man. As for instance, tests in mental arithmetic skills and reckoning is necessary to the white race, and it has cultivated this faculty, but it is not necessary to the Negro. Now, let me stop for a moment. Um, Now, some of that can be argued, but a lot of it is a lot of hogwash because there have been tests done already that talks about, and he even mentioned it, when a black child grows and their motor skills are more adept to, um, they're more adept to being able to recognize things at an early age, such as potty training, holding their head up, being able to grasp things, being able to recognize things, when a mother says, that's hot, don't touch it, and oftentimes the child might, you know, investigate and then they'll learn. They learn quick. They learn quicker than any other child. So, and then of course you cannot judge aptitude in terms of one's intelligentsia as it relates to, IQ tests and so forth, because that doesn't, that doesn't fly. Because, and then of course they use these measures and they have in these school tests to rate children's adeptness to learning based on these tests that are not actually fair. Okay, so you can't really judge it by that. So all of that is hogwash. So, anyways, that's just an example. So, and it says, on the other hand, Negroes far surpass white men in acuteness of vision, hearing, sense of direction, and topography, and more so. Believe that. The mental constitution of the Negro is very similar to that of a child, normally good natured and cheerful, but subject to sudden fits of emotion and passion during which he is capable of performing acts of singular atrocity. Now, this is crazy. Impressionable, vain, but often exhibiting in the capacity of servant a dog-like fidelity, and which has stood the supreme test. Now, who could? I mean, really. I mean, let's be honest. Who could a white man talks about acting like a dog? I mean, really, that's just such a low blow. You're gonna say, now I will. The mental construction of the Negro. I'm gonna read this again. Is very similar to that of a child. Normally good-natured and cheerful. Now that's true, but subject to sudden fits of emotion and passion during which he is capable of performing acts of singular atrocity. Now I don't agree with that. Impressionable, vain, I will agree with that, because that's where we get that mentality of him when we start with that competing and peacocking and all that kind of nonsense that we do to 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 do and to be pejorative to our counterparts, which is crazy, you know. But when he talks about that dog-like mentality and fidelity, which is no, I'm not with that, because that's more like him. I mean, and that's just really, unfortunate that people see you that way. But the only way to prove them different is to be different. You understand? But when we act like that, that's how they're going to look at us. You know what I mean? It goes on to state that as children, Negroes were bright and intelligent, but as they became adults, gradually a change set in. And as I had read earlier, we became lethargic because typical black people, as they got older, preferred, or therefore, black people and white people were biologically different. And I read this to you on the other podcast. Well, not this in particular, but I mentioned, of course, how different we are. And we are different. We're much different. And we're different in a better way. This is what is written in the Encyclopedia Britannica, sanctioned by the academic establishment, which is supposed to be the Mercedes of encyclopedias that can be bought in a supermarket for $2 a volume. But all of these, most of these journals and so forth that you'll read that are being written by white people, of course, when they tell the stories, they're going to tell the stories in their favor. And you already know that. That's not a surprise. There's nothing really surprising about that. They're going to always make themselves look better because they're at the, genetically, they're at the bottom. Another example is the political posters that were being publicized and displayed during the time of the freeing of the slaves, which ridiculed and undermined the sympathy and compassion that people may have had for supporting the freed slaves. Notice how the caricature of the black male is prominent. On the left side of this poster is a tiny white man who is struggling to chop wood. The idea here was to project the impression that he has to support this black male who is just lazy and resting. And it shows, and of course, because I'm doing research, I have this book and study here of this. But how can a white man call a black man lazy? We built the world. So who was lazy? Really? So these are the things that we have to be cognizant of, and how they try to use these images to make us look bad. And they have done that over centuries. This should be of interest because at this time, if you were to ask the question, who was really working and who was doing the sitting down, it would be obvious that the opposite was in fact true. But this is an example of perpetual distortion and denial of reality. So the denial of reality is that the white man is really the lazy man. That's the reality, because it was the black man who was doing the inventing and was doing the work. While he stood up and drank and sat on the porch and taking the woman in the barn and, and dropping his Neanderthal seed in her. Come on. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's ridiculous. Here is another example displayed in the political posters that were developed during the time. When Abraham Lincoln was reelected, an attempt was made to frighten people into believing that rampant miscegenation, race mixing was going to the place. It was going to take place. If you look at the picture closely, you will notice that the black male is always being caricatured, which was a very common feature back then. This was always the case when one group of people wanted to dominate another group with the main purpose of destroying what they perceived to be the source of power in that group. And they would always show a black man with a white woman, okay? Or trying to take a white woman. They use that. I know y'all are so familiar with that, how they use that. I mean, over centuries, how many black men, how many innocent black men have been lynched, burnt, murdered because of a lying white woman, or just a woman being thrown in the mix, a white woman being thrown in the mix. How many men have lost their lives? How many women? How many children? How many homes burnt down? How many, just mutilated and just destroyed because of a white woman? And yet, we still got brothers running around with them snow bunnies. Like you got you a prize on your hand, denying your black queens. And when it all comes down, brother, at the end of the day, that white woman is going to go with her people. In the white mind, physical power resided and still resides in the black male. So this was one reason why attempts were made repeatedly to weaken the image and undermine any sense of worth in the black male. Yes, the white women, they want black men. They want us. We strong. They want that big black buck. You know what I'm saying? They want that chocolate thing. You know what I mean? Y'all know that. So that's why you black women, you need to act right and stop acting so damn crazy. All this foolishness. You gonna wish you was with your kings? Huh. When it hit the fan, you better know what's coming down the pipe. Here is another example taken from the Atlanta Constitution in 1915, a daily newspaper which was following the same path as the encyclopedia and the political posters. On the left is an advertisement for the movie Birth of a Nation. Oh, and I know y'all remember that. And how we were so degraded, man. That movie, wow. Birth of a Nation. What a tool that was used against us, which was considered to be one of the most popular films in America and promoted as a great movie. It won an award for being one of the most technically excellent movies ever developed. Yeah, because the caricatures that they depicted about us just stomped us in the ground. Birth of a Nation was based on a novel by Ivan Dixon called The Klansman, which glorified the Ku Klux Klan and talked about how it rescued the South from all these freed slaves that were beginning to destroy what was present. But this movie, therefore, helped the South to reconceive its images in ways that were positive, especially the role that was played by the Klan. The Birth of a Nation, with its manipulation of the black image, was one of the factors that caused the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, to come into existence aggressively. National boycotts to ban this movie were organized, yet it was highly successful at the box office as the country at large was praising this type of movie. And what did they do with the NAACP? After time, they had the Untouchables who started investing money in the NAACP, where it becomes so diluted and watered down, it has no power. And so this is why a lot of these black organizations today, they can't do nothing. They ain't got no power. They can't do nothing. They just show up and get a check like Al Sharpton with his fake ass. You know what I'm saying? He is not for us. He's about getting that dollar. Plus, he used to be an FBI informant. He'll show up. He shows up as what they call a sensitizer. In other words, he comes in to calm the people down and to get them excited, and then he'll get his little check and he's out the back door, and I'll tell you, y'all, wow, it's a mess. It's something else. So anyway, here we go. We're going to finish this up. The current appreciation of this movie regarding what some white Americans had learned was that it fed a subliminal need to identify with those values that were projected in these movies. People were also fascinated with the movie Gone with the Wind as they began talking about how good life was before the slaves were free. Another similar type of movie was Out of Africa, where the white settlers looked back and talked about how good it used to be in Africa before Africans took over their country. Since the United States is predominantly white, it will project positive image of itself, which should be understood in that way. The Rambo type image, for example, is a total fabrication because that was not the way the heroic Vietnam veterans lived. They said so themselves, but Hollywood will always try to promote and romanticize the image of the white male, which they do. Note also on the right side that same day, newspaper is an advertisement for membership in the Ku Klux Klan, which showed the types of topics being promoted. And step and fetch it type stuff, you know what I'm saying? So in addition to the encyclopedia, the newspapers and posters, the films and industry became the next voice to take up the attack, where actors like Stepin Fetchit arrived onto the scene. Yeah, boy, yeah, awesome. All that type of stuff. And we got people still doing that today. Thousands of images promoting a weak black male set aside by side. The image of a strong white male were being projected, and this became very common. This could not have taken place over a number of years without having some sort of impact on the minds of all viewers, regardless of their racial or ethnic background. All right, I'm going to stop there. And we'll pick it up on Wednesday. So I hope that you guys will continue to listen in, and I hope that you will continue to give a like and a share and support. Again, I'm only bringing you stuff that I think that matters, and hopefully that we'll unify, come together as a people, and begin to build. I mean, the only way that's going to be done is if we do it. And again, all of us are not going to make it, because a lot of us are not going to change the way we think. A lot of us are not going to change our posture and how we direct our energy. So unfortunately, you're going to lose some people in the battle. You know, you may not lose the war, but you're going to lose some people in the interim of trying to come together and build. And so that's just all it is. It's people. Some people are just not going to change their dynamics as far as spiritually. Some people are going to continue to have that religious mind and have the mind of their master. And it's just simple as that. And so until the next time, we are going to say have a great night and keep your energy high. And we will see you the next time. Have a great evening. Again, this is Seth Moore coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. So have a great evening.